Anyway, that Paul Stone is a very interesting dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Very,
he's
very
plugged in, man.
interesting guy. I agree with basically everything he said, but like I think that America started to go downhill in the '60s, and I don't think, like, I don't really blame Nixon so much. I understand what he's saying, and he got off the gold standard, but I don't think Nixon understood what he was doing really.
Yeah,
And
well, I think the '60s is a major turning point, but
yeah,
the
yeah,
creation
yeah,
of the
yeah.
Fed in the 1912 or 13, in my opinion, is one of those landmarks of like, I mean, we can point to a number of these like landmarks along the destruction of this country. The '60s might have been like one of the culminations of a lot of it, where we really, because you see assassinations, war, it's like kind of a hodgepodge of everything, plus all the experiments on people with, you know, MK Ultra.
Well, I know, yeah, but I kind of think that for me, in my opinion, my weird way of saying it, we had the media was taken over by the left. I would even say, communists. The communists took over the media at the end of the '60s. They fought from 1930 until 1960 to take over the media. They finally got it around 1970. So 1970, they definitely had the media under control, but it took them a long time to do that. And evidence for that is TV shows like MASH and All in the Family, which
Right.
were anti-American, anti-patriotic, and the stand-in for the leftist was a hippie,
Right.
meathead, and the stand-in for the conservatives was, a dumb foreman from the straight. He's like an overweight, uh, stupid guy who didn't understand anything. And
Mm.
so, like, it's obviously hard. This is hardcore left-wing propaganda encased in a nice tasting candy shell.
Oh
So
yeah.
it feels good going down, but the poison is inside the candy. And after it dissolves in your stomach, then the poison gets into your system. So they use this. It's in Ben Shapiro's book, Primetime Propaganda. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Mm-mm.
Ben Shapiro?
I know who he is, but I don't know
He,
his book.
he wrote about 13 or 14 books, and Primetime Propaganda, I couldn't stop reading it. It was like electrifying. I just, it
Well, I
was
can't
amazing.
argue with the fact that the Marxists took over media, and
Yeah,
I
they took
always
over the
talk
media.
about
That's
they
then they in the '60s they destroyed, and in the '70s they thoroughly destroyed the ethics and the morality of America. That's why it doesn't exist anymore. So what
so
Nixon did with the gold standard may have been bad, but like, I think it's more serious that, like Tim Pool says, if we all had the same values, we wouldn't need a constitution. We
yeah,
wouldn't need to write it down, right?
I
And yeah, sorry.
I think it's a nice thing to think about. I just think it's impossible with the fall of man and how greedy and evil people can be. But I totally am with you on the '60s and the Marxists and what happened with the Weather Underground. And on top of them taking over media, they also invaded universities. And then the country started saying, you have basically got to go to college. It's the only way to get a real job. And
Well, because they want to control who gets a job. They want to make sure that whoever gets a job has the correct political view, the
mhm.
correct political perspective. So that's why it's important to get a degree, so that they can make sure that if you're a right-wing person, you don't get a job, and you don't get into some sort of important profession or vocation or whatever. And they don't want conservatives to have influential positions. So that's why they take over the universities,
Hmm.
A, to brainwash youngsters who are going to be the future, brainwash them into seeing things from a Marxist lens, and B, to be able to try to control the economy because they're going to put their Marxist thinking students into the influential positions.
Hmm.
And in the '80s, the establishment became the Clintons. The Bill and Hillary Clinton, Bill and Hillary Clinton, that type of person became the establishment in the '80s.
Right.
And then Barack Obama was younger. He came a little bit later, but he was already a hardcore communist.
And
He's
then
hardcore, that guy.
to
There's no
to
question.
and then just to like put a bookend to the Clintons though, and then tie it in with what Paul's saying is that Hillary has literally called herself a Wilsonian, progressive, right? And so Wilson creating the Fed and doing just a bunch of terrible stuff to this country and the world. I mean, what he did to Haiti was terrible. What he did with world, I mean, it was just ridiculous. He ran on the platform of no wars, and then he got us into World War One. And he was just, I think, one of the worst presidents. And then that started this evolution to what we get with the Clintons, who I think are completely deranged and also attacked Haiti in weird and strange ways, like her favorite president, Wilson. And also this idea of like credentialism. We talk about college as well. Wilson was a big college guy, wrote a bunch of books, credentialist, someone who thought he was better than you. And that's how the Clintons think of us too. And that's how a lot of those hippies that came out of
the credential is a tool to control who gets into an influential position.
Mm-hmm.
If we can determine who gets the paper, those guys are going to have the influential positions.
Right.
If we see somebody's a conservative like Ben Shapiro, guess what? He fails. He doesn't get the credential. That's what happens. I had a friend who did an essay. I was in a college here in Toronto, and we had a philosophy professor, and I didn't have him, but my friend had him, and he's a smart guy, my friend. And he wrote in his essay that, if a person is born with no fingers, he ain't going to become a concert pianist. And he failed the essay because the professor was a communist, and if you say something that implies that you believe that heredity has some value, you fail. That's it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the politically correct view, we don't want you to succeed. We don't want you to get into a position where you can make any important decisions. We just want to make sure that the right people get in, and that's also why they're pushing women in. The universities lowered the bar for women and raised the bar for men. That's why there's 2/3, like the student bodies in all the universities are now 2/3 women and 1/3 men.
Yeah.
Because they want to dethrone men. And there's a war on men.
And destroy the family.
Men have to be dethroned, destroyed, and eliminated. And women are a way of doing that. They don't care about the women. They don't give a shit about the women. They're just using them as a temporary weapon to get rid of the men. When they've achieved, some sort of female thing, they're going to destroy the women because they want to destroy the economy. They hate free market enterprise. They want a Soviet-style economy for the entire Western world.
Right.
That's their goal.
I think
that's their goal.
And I think that's a lot of gatekeeping too that's still happening right now. And unfortunately, it's gone where we're at right now is beyond left and right, in my opinion. And I think I see the gatekeeping happening on all sides. And I see a lot of people on the right asking about or doing things that are like gatekeeping the same way the left was doing or the Marxists were doing. And, you talk about like someone like Shapiro, I see them as a part of the fracturing within the right now and a portion of gatekeeping that's happening when it comes to certain ideas and questions. And I think it's getting it's getting sketchier out there now because it felt like it was easy to identify the left versus the right. And what's happening now is gatekeeping across all sides. And that's an issue that I'm looking at now. But like, obviously the 60s were a problem. The 70s were an issue with the way the hippies took over. In my opinion, the hippies, they were like puppeteered by the establishment to feel like they were counterculture only to become the establishment. How many of those hippies in the 60s are, neocons today or liberals? And in my opinion, there's not much of a distinction between a lot of them policy-wise.
Well, maybe the hippies were puppeteered, but they weren't puppeteered by the establishment. They were puppeteered by the Marxists. The young kids in university, like a 20-year-old, you're 20 years old when you go to university, roughly, or 18, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you go from Nebraska as an 18-year-old into University of California, Brandeis, you're not going to be arguing about we shouldn't be in Vietnam. They got these ideas from the professors. And the professors were these old 60-year-old communists who came from Germany because they had to leave in 1933 when Hitler was elected. And they thought, well, we better get out of Dodge. Let's go to New York. They all went to New York, but 2 of them went to California. Adorno and Marcuse. They went to California because there's pretty girls there, there's sunshine, the weather's much nicer. But most of them stuck in Manhattan, in Columbia. And then over the next 30 years, they brainwashed all the students that they could. They built up a whole culture on the university campus that's against America, totally against America, and brainwash all these young kids. And the young kids' phrases through the 60s then, when they reached that critical mass where the students were starting to revolt against the Vietnam War, when Johnson was the president. They didn't when Kennedy was the president, because they didn't get there yet. But
No,
when Johnson became the president, they reached that critical mass where these 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds were, throwing Molotov cocktails and stones at the police, getting shot in Berkeley with rubber bullets. Some of them died, seven of them died. Then they had these huge demonstrations in Chicago in 1967 against Lyndon Johnson. They were demonstrating at the Democratic convention in Chicago.
Right.
And Mayor Daley was the mayor, and he was trying to deal with it with the police. It was a huge. There's just violence all over the place. Plus the Weather Underground, they were blowing things up.
Of course.
And when Nixon came in, all of a sudden everything went quiet.
So
because.
Finish your thought. Finish your thought. Sorry.
So I'm thinking that this was a major disruption to the ethical system, and the morals and ethics were destroyed by brainwashing the next generation of people who are going to come into the economy, come into politics. So they're like the Clintons, and they believe, maybe many of them truly believe in Marxism. They're like true believers, but some of them are just. I don't think Hillary Clinton is a Marxist. I think she's just an opportunist. She just wants to make money and have power. And in a sense,
I agree.
Some people adhere to the left-right paradigm, but some people, they just want power. They just want money, and that's Hillary Clinton to a T. I don't think she doesn't go home and read Karl Marx.
No.
Bill Clinton, on the other hand, probably is more interested in Karl Marx.
She goes home and drinks blood. Before we get to the next caller, I just want to say I agree with that part, with the Marxist takeover of the 60s. But when I'm saying that the establishment puppeteered them, it's that we also at the same exact time had the CIA infiltrating the counterculture in Laurel Canyon, creating all these like musicians, celebrities, movie stars, popping out all this propaganda from Mount Look Observatory, feeding them LSD.
Where did you get that from?
Read Chaos, read Poisoner in Chief, read Wild Scenes from Laurel Canyon. It's well documented, declassified.
Just because somebody writes a book doesn't mean it's true.
Oh, well, you can certainly look into all of that and look at source material for sure. It's a huge movement that happened throughout the 60s. And
I question it. I don't want to argue with it, but
you should go look it up and call back, because it was a major movement within the CIA to infiltrate the counterculture, especially the anti-war movement.
All right. I'm willing to admit that, but the ethos has been messed with, and I think that's the major problem. And I don't think Nixon knew what he was doing. He didn't understand.
Yeah.
A lot of politicians don't understand economics. They just don't understand it. And they have to rely on their advisors. And I don't know who his advisor was. I think it was, I can't remember.
Well, I want to get to other callers because we're getting late in the night. But I love this conversation, and I really do hope you call back and we can talk more about the, how the Marxist thing was happening, but the parallel to that is the CIA destroying the counterculture and the hippies and then recreating them. And that's how we got Manson. And, you can hit me up on Twitter or Instagram, wherever. And that might sound funny to you, but there are large documents that have been declassified, and various books and various authors who've written about this. It's crazy.
Okay. All right.
Call me back.
Have a good night.
You too, man.
So
you're
not pissed off with me.
Why would I be pissed off? I love this stuff. No, this is great.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, I like you guys. Keep it up.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Till next time.